Hello, world. Today is Saturday, June 27th, 2026. This is a sideshow. I'm Theodore Parker, coming to you from the East Coast of the United States, Lexington, Kentucky. It's Saturday. I'm usually not on the sideshow or broadcasting on Saturday, but today is kind of like an exception. The last time I aired was June 17th on a Wednesday, prior to Juneteenth celebration and the weekend thereof. Weather-wise, currently we're experiencing thunderstorms, which was going on yesterday, and that kind of gave me pause as far as trying to deal with the electronic devices. But be that as it may, currently here on the East Coast, it's exactly 11 a.m. We have 70 degrees here in Lexington with thunderstorms. And yesterday we had a flood watch until Saturday 8 a.m. The rain did slack off during the day and then resumed overnight, and we are currently in the middle of it. So today, highs in the upper 70s and lows in the upper 60s. Expect Monday to be the next no precipitation day. I thought it was going to be tomorrow, Sunday. Poor weather for running, obviously, cycling, and gardening. The AQI is good at 27, and the UV is moderate right now. And there is a light breeze, 9 miles per hour. So this rain, according to the weather report, may slack off in the early part of the afternoon and then resume getting above 50% later on tonight around 10 p.m. So that's where we are weather-wise. And currently it is 100% for precipitation here in this area. Well, things to talk about. Last Thursday was the opening ceremonies for the Obama Presidential Center in Southside Chicago. There have been airing video clips of the ceremony since then. And there were quite a few entertainers. I tuned in myself. Heard former First Lady Michelle Obama make her comments and President Obama make his comments, and various entertainers perform in front of the crowd. And officially it opened the doors on Friday, Juneteenth. And since then, probably across the country, that celebration went on. I found out that it was actually a national holiday, which means that federal offices were closed. Along with that was the Soul Food Fest, which has been going on in Lexington for the last week and will conclude after tomorrow, June 28th, Sunday. Speaking of tomorrow, BET Awards will air tomorrow, if my understanding is correct, Sunday, June 29th, 2026. And going back to the Obama Presidential Center, the center has been so well received that tickets are sold out all the way up to November of this year to visit the center. So there we have it. At this point, I guess I'll ask a quick question. As they used to say sometimes, do you want the bad news first, the good news first, or do you want the good news first and the bad news next? Okay, since it's my decision, I'll do the bad news, and then we'll have that out the way, and then go on to the good news as time allows. So what I'm speaking of in particular is the Carmela Anthony case. Here's a young man, a teenager, who was found guilty of murder and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. My understanding is that this case is being process for appeal. The circumstances on this, depending on where you are, because we have things like this, I have my sources, which is usually the media, then you have broadcast TV. And for those of you who ride in a vehicle, you have the radio. So what caught my point and what made me kind of bring my focus a little more sharply in was the fact that after the case had become common knowledge and information started flowing about it, it wasn't until after all these things had happened that I realized that the reason Carmelo Anthony was in the tent in the first place was because he was trying to get out of the rain. So the surrounding events, as has been expressed, was the high school was having, if I believe correctly, a track and field meet. And as is the case, most commonly, you have one high school against another. So apparently it started raining, and Carmelo Anthony stepped into the opposing high school's tent to get out of the rain. And while he was there, two teenagers approached him, telling him to leave. He couldn't be in there, and talking like teenagers talk, I would imagine. You have to go, you have to get out, and hey man, it's raining, what's a few minutes? What difference is a few minutes gonna make to put me out in the rain? So apparently the words weren't enough, and one thing led to another. Pushing got involved, and pushing apparently was not acceptable to Carmelo Anthony. He drew a knife, stabbed the other teenager in the stomach, and he consequently died from his wounds. So that's kind of like where things were. So, or are. Until you get to the sentencing part of it, where he received 35 years as a sentence for his actions. So it's at this point that I will again reiterate, and I'm allowing for the generation gap as well, that it's not so much the moment that we are in, where our decisions count. It's the moment after we make our decision that really carries whatever consequences our decisions are. So I'm a reference at this point, a statement or comment by D.L. Hughley, which is why I mentioned radio. He does have a syndicated show on the radio, and he took about 5 minutes to make comments about the Carmelo Anthony case, the youthfulness of the people involved, the young men involved. And one of the things that he asked, he said, or mentioned, you say that we have to respect authority. But in this case, who is the authority? So that was like, my take on that was, here you have, young people at a sporting event, in their area, and apparently there was no adult, quote unquote, present to intercede or intervene or to be present for possible situations just like this. So it was left to the teenagers to work it out or come to a decision as to how they were going to handle things, with no cooler and hopefully wiser heads involved. So it was at this point, and again, I'm allowing for the generation gap, that the idea of him carrying a knife got me to thinking. But then I'm also saying, well, in this, I come from a generation where a pocket knife was just that, a pocket knife. You could put it in your pocket, with your change and your keys, and that was just about as much as was involved with it. But now, the way knives are considered from a law enforcement standpoint, it's acceptable for you to carry a knife with a blade of 3 inches. More than that, then you can be approached by law enforcement as to what the reason or purpose is for you having that with you or on you. And I can say for myself, as I go about my activities, I see men with knives longer than 3 inches strapped to their waist in a sheath or holder that resemble hunting knives or bowie knives or anything else longer than 3 inches. But also with the 3-inch deal, what has occurred most recently is there's a little clip attached to it where you can clip it to the edge of your pocket, and everybody around you knows that you have a pocket knife. And when it comes to people, men in particular, who are carrying knives larger than that, then I have to say that it's more like what would be referred to visually as homeless men. And that homeless is more of a classification for processing rather than it being an actual fact of them being homeless. So all that being said, I kind of had to cool my jets on him having a knife at all. But then just along about this time, somebody brings up a case that occurred in 2023, or went to trial in 2023, where 19-year-old David Pleasant was shot and killed by then 17-year-old Alec Adamson. And the case went to trial in September 2023, and he received a 4-year sentence for the same act of taking somebody's life. But in this case, black and white teenagers. The one teenager was fleeing, the 19-year-old was fleeing because the 17-year-old was attempting to rob him of drugs that he was dealing. And when he was running away is when the 17-year-old shot at him, striking him in the back of the head, killing him. So the disparity in sentencing, 4 years for this white youth and 35 years for the black youth for the same crime, in effect, taking a life, strikes some people as being different, to say the least. And in the case of the 17-year-old, he had already served like 2 years of his sentence waiting trial. And then when the trial decision was made, he was given, conclusion of his sentence for time served, and he was, for all intents and purposes, allowed to go free. So this brings me to this article that I found, which speaks to both cases, and is from the Kara News, and it's dated June 18, 2026. And it's written by Brooke Colombo, Denton Record Chronicle. So you might want to make a note of this, grab a piece of paper and a pencil. I'll repeat it again at some point. It's entitled, Carmelo Anthony Conviction Casts New Spotlight on Little Elm Murder Trial. Excuse me. So it has a picture, if I can share it, of Carmelo Anthony with his mother and sister being a single mother. And the thing about it, it mentions both cases, but it also goes on to address the idea of an all-white jury in both cases. And it does kind of explain some of the particulars of jury selection. And in the Carmelo Anthony case, there were 4 4 jurors called, and in this particular article, the writer says jury selection as or elimination. So in this case, the 4 black jurors that had been called were eliminated because they were classified as educators. So it's kind of in-depth article, but it does provide a lot of details that otherwise you would not have access to. So again, this is Texas, and Kera News, Kera News, and the title is Camilla Anthony Conviction Casts New Spotlight on Little Elm Murder Trial, and it's dated June 18, 2026. And it's written by Brooke Colombo, capital Brooke, Colombo, Colombo, Denton Record Chronicle. I think it's worth the read, especially with cases like this. You know, several things notwithstanding, if it's not in your area, if it's not in your community, if it's not your neighborhood, and you were not present for what happened, then a lot of details may not reach you. So that's my take on that situation. Other events in the news, I will say this, changing paths and direction. As I've stated more than once, try not to do a whole lot on the present administration, but comedians are currently having a field day with its latest fiasco with the reflecting pool, especially now that algae has developed in it. And having been a former resident of the DMV, I know that the reflecting pool is right behind the Smithsonian, and probably from 4th Street Southwest on up to Capitol Hill, they probably can smell it. Anybody that's ever owned a fish tank and had to learn how to clean it knows that algae will develop, and it does have a smell. And referencing Donald Trump's own comment before the renovation, repair, etc. was done, he said there'll be a liner in there that they will not be able to even cut with a knife. As soon as the algae developed, he came back and said, well, somebody must have took a knife and cut the liner. So we have typical Donald Trump. So getting back to things that have happened since the last time I was on the air, quickly, I mentioned the BET Awards for tomorrow, Sunday. And also this past Tuesday and Wednesday, they had the NBA Draft. Plenty of new talent stepping onto the hardwood. The number 1, 2, and 3 picks for round 1 went as predicted. Also this month, early, Russell Wilson made his retirement from the NFL official. Earlier this month, he already has a spot for his opinions and comments for the upcoming NFL season. Wilson is known for his groundbreaking moves in raising his salary as a quarterback during his 14-season career. World Cup soccer is still being played. I think they have groups from A to L. The U.S. is in Group D and leads with 6 wins. In regards to the College World Series, Oklahoma defeated the North Carolina Tar Heels with a 13-2 win in that series. And Serena Williams accepted an invitation to play and paired with her sister Venus. This is Wimbledon 2026. Moving over to the WNBA, the Minnesota Lynx currently lead the overall WNBA standings with a 14-4 record. followed closely by the Las Vegas Aces, 13-5. The league features a unified standing format with the Atlanta Dream, 12-6, hold the third spot, and the Golden State Valkyries and New York Liberty both tied just behind. Major League Baseball. The American League East is led by the Yankees with 48 wins. The National League West, Seattle wins of 42. National League East, Atlanta with 49 wins. The American League Central, the Chicago White Sox with 42. And the National League Central, Milwaukee with 50 wins. And National League West, LA Dodgers with 52. If you hadn't noticed, summer officially started on June 21st, which was also Father's Day. So I wanted to mention that. And that kind of rounds off the events in June of 2026. Wednesday is the first day of July. And that weekend, starting with Friday the 3rd, will be celebration for USA 250, 250 years of this country. So that's what's going on, and what I thought would be of interest to pass along to you. As I say, I try to find some common ground for all of us to meet on and keep each other abreast of what's going on around the world. This is a Sideshow. I'm Theodore Parker. Today is Saturday, June 27th, 2026. That's it. Hashtag